your day. Make to subscribe and stay up the Reds, up the Reds. Oh, oh, ooh. Oh, oh, ooh. Oh, oh, ooh. Oh, 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 Anfield Agenda. Anfield Agenda. YNWA. Anfield Agenda.
What is up, my friends? How are we? It is Wednesday night. You are all very welcome along to tonight's late night agenda. Genuinely, hand on heart, didn't even know Arsenal were playing tonight in the Premier League. I had to scroll down on live score past all the other games that are going on in the Champions League. They are taking on Wolves in the Premier League, just in case you're as ill-informed as I am. So tonight, ladies and gents, we're going to speak about Camavinga. We're going to talk about other potential options for the Reds. Morgan Rogers being one of those names that have been linked. Of course, we'll talk about other central defensive midfielders. I've seen a comment in the chat saying, do we not have other priorities? Is centre-back not in need? And yes, we do, of course, and we'll talk about that tonight. Alonso, well, we had a bit of a scare there. He was being linked with the job at Marseille, but they've now already unveiled a new coach, so safe to say we're okay around Xabi Alonso for, the summer, if indeed Liverpool require his services. We're going to talk about Virgil van Dijk and some comparisons with some of the top centre-backs of the modern era. A little bit about Joshua Abe as well, as Liverpool look to try to tie him down to scholarship. That and lots more over the next 2 hours or whatever length of time we're on. As always, ladies and gentlemen, pleasure to be here with you. Thank you for giving up your evening to have a chat with me. So where do we want to kick off tonight then, ladies and gents? There's quite a bit to go through. Do you know what? Let me just talk about Jamie Carragher for a minute, because I think I forgot to mention this on the video earlier on. He said, this squad's not that big, Liverpool's squad. Not that well balanced. I'm sure there will be a manager out there. I'm not sure there'll be a manager out there getting loads more out of it, if I'm being totally honest. So I thought that's a good jumping off point for tonight's conversation. What do we think about Jamie Carragher's comments there? It feels a bit revisionist to me. I think in the summer, Jamie Carragher, like everybody else, was really happy with the business that Liverpool did. Now, as the course of the season's unfolded, some gaps clearly showing up in that squad. And I'm not trying to argue that, you know, the squad is short of players or short of options, but I would argue a little bit with Jamie Carragher's comment saying that Liverpool's manager is probably getting as much out of the squad, or no other manager could get a bit more out of it. I would disagree on that one, but again, would love to know your thoughts on it. Our first poll of the night is up and running at the minute as well. We've asked, would you be happy if Liverpool signed Eduardo Camavinga from Real Madrid? So we'll go back and touch on the answer to that one in a little bit. Newcastle, well, they've booked their place pretty much into the last 16 of the Champions League. They beat Qarabağ 6-1. Yep, you heard me right, 6-1 away from home in the Champions League, with 4 goals from Anthony Gordon in that game as well. So how does that make our 6-0 at home work against Qarabağ? Let me know your thoughts on that one as well in the comments. Tony said, half-time, it's Bodo Glimt 1, Inter Milan 1. 2-0 Atleti now in that game, and of course that game does have repercussions for us. We know that Liverpool will play one of Galatasaray, Juventus, Club Brugge or Atletico Madrid, and it's certainly looking like it'll be either Atletico Madrid or Galatasaray at this point. Of course, the draw won't be taking place until February the 27th, and then we will know exactly who our opponents are in the last 16. Right, let's get cracking. Morgan Rogers, definitely for me, and Anthony Gordon. So the problem that I have with the whole Morgan Rogers link is where do we play him? Like, where do we put Morgan Rogers if he comes to the club? You know, and do we need to commit that much money to another player in a position where I don't think we're that short? Unless I'm missing something, or unless maybe he's going to be played off the left-hand side. I just don't think that one has much sensibility to it, in my humble opinion. But of course, it is just that, my opinion. Hello, Craig and everybody. Hope you're all well today, Michael. I'm good, bro. I'm good. Hate these quiet times with no Liverpool games for 8 days. It's really difficult to kind of find your way through the week. Look, in a weird way, I wish the Reds were playing in the Champions League tonight, but of course, in another way, I'm very glad we're not, because it's, it's the playoff round for the knockout stages, and I'm glad we're not in there. But, looking around, seeing other fans getting to watch a bit of footy, and we have to wait 8 days for the Reds to be back in action. Feels like a little while. Bradley Warren, how are you, Bradley? Said, we have a group of talented players. Adaptability to different positions when needed will determine our season. That's pretty fair, mate. And we've seen plenty of adaptability needed, especially in the right back position this season. But I want to know, do you agree with Jamie Carragher's comments that not really any other coaches could get much more out of this Liverpool group? Because, I understand what he said about the squad not being that big. That's fair enough. But again, I think he's forgetting to say that Arne wanted a smaller squad. Arne talked about preferring a smaller squad. He goes on to say it's not that well balanced, and I'm sure there'll be a manager. I wouldn't be a manager out there who get much more out of this group. And I think he's probably mistaken on the latter part of that anyway. I do think the group is underperforming, or has underperformed. Probably fairer to say has, because we look like we're getting back to something that resembles ourselves in recent times. Eddie said, I don't want to give Real Madrid money for a player. Arne Slot's still there next season. I won't be watching. I know you say that every night now, Eddie. I get it. I understand. If Arne's here, you won't be watching. Totally understand it. But the Real Madrid money thing, yeah, I'm kind of with you on that one, to be honest. I don't like the idea of lining their pockets one bit. But I guess the question for me, Eddie, would come down to, would Eduardo Camavinga be the best fit, be the best option in the position? And that's why I'm a little bit unsure, because I do rate him as a footballer. Camavinga's a wonderful footballer. But I don't know. Something just doesn't feel very Liverpool-y about the whole thing. And I'm always very dubious about the idea of Liverpool signing players from Real Madrid. Did you watch the Newcastle game? William said. I did, mate, yes. Well, I watched the end of the first half and all of the second half. So I did. I watched most of the game. And it was a bit weird. Like, their goalkeeper, I think he made 10 saves or something in the game. Newcastle had something like 23 shots, 16, 17 on target. It was a mad open game for the home side to just absolutely look like they didn't belong out there, and Newcastle put them to the sword. Again, it kind of made me question, how good was our 6-0 win against Qarabağ? It's always great to have a 6-0 win, don't get me wrong, but Newcastle went over there and put 6 past them away from home. Christina, always lovely to see you, my friend. Hope you're well. Said, I wouldn't like to give Real Madrid the satisfaction of taking money off us, even though he's a good player. Always too much drama at Real Madrid unless we get him on a free transfer. Yeah, there is a lot of drama around that club, and actually, I finally got a chance to have a look at the Vinicius Junior situation. A lot of you guys were asking me about it last night, and I hadn't seen the Real Madrid game, but I watched it back last night, and all I can say is pretty much echo what everybody else has said, what Thierry Henry and others have said, that you don't put your top over your mouth unless you're saying something that you don't want to be seen or heard, and it's a cowardly move. Look, Vinicius Junior is a shithouse, and that's okay. Plenty of footballers are. But that doesn't mean he gets to be racially abused. Nobody deserves that treatment. I know he's a wind-up merchant and stuff like that, but that's part and parcel of football. I hope they throw the book at this guy if he's proven to be racist, because it is truly disgusting. Kylian Mbappe came out speaking about it. And I think Thierry Henry said it best, and he probably sums up my feelings as well, that I don't like Real Madrid. I don't have much time for Real Madrid. But in that moment, like Henry said, he was a Madrista, and I think we all should have been, because no player should be put through that. Even if they are a wind-up merchant, that doesn't excuse racist behaviour towards them. So, yeah, I hope it's investigated. I hope that we don't see another one of these cases where they say there's not enough evidence one way or the other. Because ultimately, if you're pulling your shirt up over your top to say something to somebody, you're saying something you don't want to be picked up. I think we can safely say that. After that, why are you doing it? It's a cowardly thing. And you know me, I've said the same simple thing all the time. If you have something to say on this planet, if you have an opinion that you want to get out there, say it. Say it. Own it. And if you don't, you're a coward. And you've heard me say this many times. And that player last night was a coward. That Benfica player was an absolute coward. And to see that happen to Vinicius Junior, who I don't have much time for, But I will absolutely stand with him and any player that's racially abused simply for being out there on a football pitch. Shouldn't happen. And I hope the book gets thrown at him. I really do. Hi, Craig. I watched last night's stream. Just wanted to add to the 5 pillars debate. Oh, yes. Yeah, please do. Origi, without his super sub goals, we were doomed. The man deserves a statue. Well, you see, pillars for me are the foundations, the very important things that led us to that success. Divock Origi is a super sub or a cult hero, is what I'd probably call him. But I wouldn't put him down as one of the pillars, no. But he did score huge goals in huge moments, so I totally understand where you're coming from with it. You know, whether it be the goal against, the goal in the Champions League, whether it be any of his other memorable big moments that he stood up and scored for us. He was always there, wasn't he? There or thereabouts, Champions League final. If my memory's right, he scored the second one in that. Yeah, always there, but I wouldn't have him as one of the pillars of the Liverpool recent history anyway. But appreciate you coming in with your take on it. I was thinking quite a bit about that last night as well, and I'm still happy with the 5 I picked, but there is something kind of eating away at me that I left out Andy Robertson as well, because he should be in that. Josh said, how are you doing, Craig? Currently in the UK at the moment, going to Anfield for the first time to watch Liverpool versus West Ham. Hoping for a good result. Nice. That'll be pretty cool. Yeah, that'll be an interesting game. I mean, pretty confident we'll get a result for you there, make on to that one, but hope you enjoy it, and I hope you're enjoying your time in the UK as well. Good game to go to Liverpool West Ham. Hopefully be a few goals in it for you as well. Gordon said, I think we might be a little unbalanced at the moment, but we need to look at the squad. Once everybody is fit and available, there's always room to adjust. And I would agree with you on that, Gordon. There's definitely always room to adjust and add a few more. I find it very difficult to go back and now pick the holes in the summer window that none of us really... Well, now, to be fair, a few people flagged up the too many changes part. But the lack of squad depth, I mean, outside the centre-back, I don't really think many of us thought we had a lack of squad depth in the summer. Probably because we assumed we'd see more of Rio Wengamoa. We probably assumed we were getting that centre-back in at the end of the window. Now, that was a huge issue. And that's one I still, like I've said, I'm sorry for repeating myself over and over, but I do not know how we went through January and didn't bring in a centre-back. It just feels like an unnecessary risk for the remainder of the campaign. Yes, we signed Jeremy Jacquet for next season, but that's not going to help us out in the run-in for the remainder of this campaign. So let me go back and check. I want to read you something from James Pearce. And he's been speaking about young Joshua Abe, that young kid, 15 years of age, scored a hat-trick for the under-18s and training with the first team already. This piece here from James Pearce said, although there's an understandable buzz around Joshua Abe at Liverpool, the 15-year-old faces an uncertain future as he yet to accept the club's offer of a scholarship. Talks are ongoing as Liverpool hope to convince the winger to stay at Anfield. Liverpool currently limit most of their first-year pros, to a basic salary of around 52,000 a year, so about £1,000 a week. It is a policy designed to reward progress and keep youngsters hungry and driven, but other elite clubs are prepared to offer more guaranteed riches. On top of that, he said multiple sources confirmed that talks are ongoing as Liverpool attempt to convince Abe to stay. The Premier League rivals are understood to be keeping a close eye on the situation, given that there is still no agreement, and if there's no agreement by June 1st, then he will be free to speak to other clubs. So I really do hope Liverpool can find something that works here for Joshua Abe, because he looks like a huge talent. I've said to you guys before, he's been liking a couple of posts and that have been linking it with moves away, so let's wait and see. But for me, I hope we can keep that young talented player, because that's what we want, right? We want these players to be coming through, spending time, getting to know the Liverpool way, getting to know the Liverpool setup, and then hopefully, fingers crossed, making their way to the first team eventually. Grizzly, how are you, mate? Said, Bastoni, Nico and Adam Wharton are the dream this summer for me. Any word on Bastoni? I haven't heard anything new. You're my only reliable source these days. Keep up the great work. I've never really believed that we'll get Bastoni. I've never, for some reason, I've never believed we'll get Bastoni, and I've never really felt like we were likely to get Nico Schlotterbeck either. For me, Grizzly, I think the centre-back situation at the moment, I'm waiting to see what happens with Canade. It's tough to really get a read on the situation without knowing where we're at with Canade and what's going to happen there. Because if Canade stays, the balance looks a bit better. If Canade leaves, then you're going to have to go out and find somebody who's come in to partner Virgil van Dijk. Now, do you bring in a young centre-back at that point? A 21, 22-year-old, maybe even younger? Or do you look for somebody 25, 26 to come in to be that next defensive leader? It's a difficult question. Because if Canade stays, he could, of course, go on to be that defensive leader. But if he doesn't, well, we know it's not going to be Mark A. Jacquet, with all due respect, is he going to come in and be ready straight away to hit the ground running? Probably not. So he's going to take a bit of time. Young Giovanni Leone, we all know how good he looked. But again, we've a very limited sample size of his work. So, yeah, if Canade stays, I think we're okay. We can probably bring in one more if Gomez leaves. But if Canade goes, I'll be very intrigued to see what Liverpool do with regards to bringing in somebody. They look for somebody Premier League proven, or they perhaps dip their toes in the European market again. Grizzly, thank you as well, mate, for gifting 10 memberships. Just seeing that pop up on the screen there as well. Absolute gentleman. Thank you so much for that. Stevie Boy said, will Kwanzaa be back next season? So the agreement that we have in place for Kwanzaa, the buyback clause, kicks in 2027. So, I'm sure you could try to do something to get him back a year earlier if you really, really wanted to. But here's the question that I have around that one, Stevie Boy, is one, if you're Jarell Kwanzaa, do you really want to be coming back to a club of Arna's there? The man who took you off halfway through his first game and then, sold you to Bayer Leverkusen? If I'm him, am I really coming back thinking that this manager believes in me? Probably not, in all honesty. But look, that's just my opinion from the outside. But the clause that we have there kicks in 2027. So I think everything has been agreed numerically. I think there's 60 million euro, something like that. I think even his wages or his contract has been pre-agreed already as well. So certainly a viable option for Liverpool. But again, we're talking a year down the line. And let's fast forward a year. So let's say we're in the summer 2027. Virgil's contract is up. If Canade hasn't stayed at that point, do we really want that many young centre-backs without any real, bona fide leader there with experience? You'd have Leone, you'd have Jacquet, you'd have Kwanzaa. I don't know. I still feel like we need somebody in their mid to late 20s to anchor that centre-back position. Keane said Nico Schlotterbeck could be a very good option in a cut price deal with only a year left on his deal. He would, but a lot of the chatter is around either Real Madrid or Bayern Munich. Now, I don't know if Bayern Munich have no interest anymore with Upamecano signing a new deal. Maybe they're out of the picture, I don't know. But certainly Real Madrid's name has been mentioned. If Madrid get Canada, I'd like to see us push for Schlotterbeck. Absolutely. I'd like to see us try and push for him. But we'll have to wait and see. I'll ask that as the next poll question because I think it's an interesting one to ask. Like, would you be happy with Nico Schlotterbeck coming in if Canade leaves? Or would you be happy with Canade leaving if Schlotterbeck comes in? Whichever way you want me to phrase it, I'll probably try that as the next poll question. Right, let's get cracking. Morgan Rogers. Let's talk about this story from Team Talk. So it says, Paris Saint-Germain and Liverpool have entered the race to sign Aston Villa and England star Morgan Rogers. The French club have been monitoring the 23-year-old throughout the season, while Liverpool are now keen to rival Manchester United and Arsenal for a signature. Rogers' camp are aware of the growing interest, but with the midfielder tied to Villa until 2031, any deal would require a significant fee. Again, where are we on Morgan Rogers, chat? Do let me know, because I just can't see how you get Morgan Rogers into that Liverpool team. Where do we play him? Do we play him in off the left? Because it's the only way I can think of. We don't really need more 10s or attacking midfielders. Jason said Cresswell as well. Yeah, Cresswell's name was linked. I don't know where I stand with that one, though, in all honesty. Charlie Cresswell's been linked for quite a while. And he was linked in January as well, but obviously nothing happened there. And honestly, on Cresswell, I don't know where we stand with levels of interest or how serious. I'd have to, again, do a bit of research on that one and ask a few questions, but certainly a very credible name. Moses said, what did you think about Vinny and Cristiani? Yeah, I was just saying at the start of the stream, mate, I only got a chance to watch it back last night. Obviously, you were talking about it on the stream yesterday, and I hadn't seen the incident. Now, of course, I've seen it back. My response is exactly as you would expect my response to be, scumbag behaviour. You don't cover your mouth unless you're saying something you don't want to be seen, heard, or lip read. And I don't think he was asking them for a recipe for sourdough bread, so... Yeah, I fully believe Vinicius Junior. I think he's a shithouse. I don't like him as a player. I think he's a wind-up merchant. But all of that aside, he deserves to be respected the same as any other human being out there on a football pitch. And Mbappe came out, said he heard it. And again, I'm always going to be on the side of calling out racism. There's no place for it. There's no need for it. There's plenty you could say to Vinicius Junior to wind him up. Plenty. You don't have to bring anyone's skin colour into it. You can tell him he's shit. You can tell him he's a diva. You can tell him he rolls around too much. There's a lot of things you can say to somebody to get in their head. But if you're having to resort to racist stereotypes, racist tropes, and just sheer racism, sorry, no place for you. You're not wanted in the game. And I'm really interested to see how UEFA act this time. Because all these slaps on the wrist and there's not enough evidence and blah, blah, it's all bullshit. And it's all just, allowing this shit to grow. So, yeah, I certainly hope we get a proper punishment if it's proven. And there's no reason for Kylian Mbappe or Vinicius Junior to stand there and lie, is there? There's absolutely no reason for it, no need for it whatsoever. So I genuinely believe them 100%. Jacob said, I'm not a huge fan of Real Madrid, but what happened last night was unfair towards Vinny. I know, exactly. Look, we've all seen, we played Chelsea, Diego Costa. Remember him and Henderson? There's always wind-up merchants. There's always Jose Mourinho said that Vinicius Junior basically over-celebrated. Well, tough shit. If he wants to stand at that corner flag, dance, and if he wants to wind up fans, that's his right to do so. He put the ball in the back of the net. Tough shit, restrain yourself. Be a decent human being. He's celebrating a goal. You want to react to it, do it on the pitch, go up the other end and score, and then you can celebrate. So I didn't like that either. It's almost like saying, I'm against racism, but ... No, sorry, it's just wrong. And as I said, my take on Vinny Jr. I'm not a fan of his whatsoever, but yeah, definitely, as Thierry Henry said, last night everybody was a Madrista. Anybody was on the side of right in that situation. Now, of course, on the other side of it, we have to let due process play out here. I'm sure the referee will give a statement. I'm sure the players who maybe heard something will give a statement. But it'll be interesting to see how UEFA act this time, because these token gestures of small fines and shit like that, it's not going to stop anything. It needs to be just stamped out. If you want to wind up Vinny Jr., tell him he can't beat Conor Bradley. There you go, Christina. Yeah, just tell him Conor Bradley says hi and he'll be grand. It's just lazy as well, though, Christina. I've often spoke to you guys on here, and I respect the art of shithousery. I really, really do. I love it. And I think it's a huge part of the psychological battle in sport. But if you have to resort to racism, you've lost. You've lost straight away. If you're not witty enough, clever enough, or a good enough wind-up merchant, then just stay out of it, Vinicius Jr., he might rub you up the wrong way on occasion, but again, do your talking on the pitch, and then, anything out of your mouth like that was just, there's no place for it. And we're all fed up of it. All of us. We're all fed up of having to see this become a thing in our sport and our society. There's no need for it whatsoever. Like I said, when I was accused of it, it really, really broke my heart and nearly finished me off altogether. Thankfully, I had no case to answer with mine because it was just hypothetical nonsense. But I genuinely hope that this guy gets a severe punishment if it's proven. Craig, do you think John Terry would be able to compete in the game standards now? Would VVD play better in his era? So it's really funny you bring that up, because there was a post on social media that I'd seen in our Discord, just before I came live, and it was posted by a guy called Jimmy Murphy at Jimmy MU 359A4013. And he posts interesting stats. VVD absolutely wipes the floor with a lot of them. And the post was, since Opta started tracking data in 2004, this is how the debate for the greatest defender in the Premier League era looks like. So they went through different things: aerial duel success rate, ground duel success rate, passing accuracy. And every single one of those three, Virgil van Dijk finishes top of the pile. So aerial duel success rate. Virgil van Dijk has a percentage win rate of 75.5 for successful aerial duels. Next on the list is Nemanja Vidic, 73.5, then John Terry, 68.8, Vincent Kompany, 68.3, and Rio Ferdinand, 63.9. Every one of those an absolutely top quality centre-back in their day. Ground duel success rate. VVD tops it again, 73.5%. Then comes Rio Ferdinand, 70.8%. Nemanja Vidic, 69.7%. John Terry, 68.9%. And Vincent Kompany, 61.8%. Passing accuracy, again, another metric. Virgil van Dijk tops that as well, with a passing accuracy percentage of 88.8, so pretty much 89%. John Terry just behind him, to be fair, very close, 88.6%. Vincent Kompany, 86.7%. Rio Ferdinand, 84.6%. And Nemanja Vidic, 83.4%. So, everybody will have their own measurement or their own nostalgic reasons for ranking somebody 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 on that list. And I think you can make a good, strong argument for most of the names on that list. But whatever way you want to rank it, Virgil's in there with the very best that's ever done it. And it's brilliant as a Liverpool fan to see Virgil in there and to see him up there with, look, names that, if we're being honest, rivalries aside, what a collection of centre-backs we're talking about there. Like, absolutely phenomenal centre-backs. I've often said to you guys, I butt heads at Rio Ferdinand on social media quite a bit, but what that man done on a football pitch was unquestionable. He was absolutely top-notch as a centre-back. I had the pleasure of watching him live once, and truly, he was pretty damn good. So, yeah, great list for VVD to be on, and to see him top in those three categories on the list as well, just goes to show you we have a modern great, and we should appreciate what we have. Would you take Vinny at Liverpool? Nope, I wouldn't. I don't like him. Simple as that. I don't, and I won't try to get away or shy away from that fact. I don't like him. I don't like the way he carries on. I don't like a lot of his antics, and I wouldn't want him at Liverpool. But all that aside, like I said, that doesn't condone racism. Muldor said those comments should be a 6-month ban at minimum, then probation, once more and you're out of football. Fans, lifetime ban. So, it's easy when we think about these things to say, well, the tone should be set from the top down. It's easy to say that, but in practice, that often isn't the case. Often it is from the ground up, right? So, fans' behaviour has to change. Absolutely, no doubt about that. But I think the strictest, harshest of punishments have to come down from the top for this. And of course, it has to be proven. And we know what was said. We know what Mbappe said. I don't know how you go about proving these things. Truly, I don't know what other players heard, what the referee heard. But again, no more stupid little slaps on the wrist for this stuff. Behaviours need to change. And what worries me the most is the next generation of footy fans coming up. If they're in stadiums with their brothers, their fathers, their mothers, their uncles, their aunties, whoever they're in there with, and they're in and around that type of language and that type of belittlement of somebody, you don't pick up these things accidentally. Everyone is a product of their environment, and I don't want the next generation of football fans coming through to think that this is in any way acceptable. It isn't. It shouldn't happen. It shouldn't happen in society, let alone in sport. So yeah, the tone needs to be set from the top down. Paul said, if you've done that in the street, you get arrested. Absolutely, and rightly so. And rightly so, mate. As I said, it's also just lazy, Paul. Like, there's so many things you could wind up a footballer about, you know? And if I was to try and wind up Vinicius Jr., I wouldn't be short of things to try and get in his ear and wind him up about, you know? Just feign injury and, you know, overacting and, you know, if he misses a sitter, you just wind him up about that. You just, you know, you just do things to wind him up the old-fashioned way. Same with anybody else out there on the pitch. You know, you niggle them, you pull their jersey, you pinch the back of their neck. You do all the things you do as if you're a centre-back to a forward or a full-back to an attacking player that you do in general. It's just cowardly. But again, I don't want to be taking up time in our stream talking about these cowards and their actions, because it's not what we want to be talking about as football fans. We want to be talking about the goal Vinicius Jr. scored and, you know, the good side of football. PD Hayward said, I agree with Craig about Vinicius Jr. Don't like his attitude or behaviour on the pitch or off it, but has nothing to do with his skin colour. I just don't think he's a pleasant human being. Exactly. I'm not going to be a hypocrite and say I like the guy all of a sudden. I don't like him one bit. But as I've said, if you are going to have to race bait somebody, if you're going to have to racially abuse somebody, you've lost. You know, there's so many other things you could wind up footballers about. Anyway, let's move on. So earlier on, there was a report that came out of France that said Marseille considered Xabi Alonso for the managerial job. However, the current instability around the club has not attracted the former Real Madrid coach, so they have appointed a new head coach today. I got a little bit worried though when I'd seen that about Alonso. Got a bit nervous that maybe we were going to lose out. So we asked, would you be happy if we signed Eduardo Camavinga? 60% of you guys said yes, you would be happy if Liverpool brought him in. Right, let's... what was the next poll I said I was going to run? I said there was another one. I know... Actually, let's ask about Morgan Rogers. I want to ask a poll a different way about Morgan Rogers. So the way I'm going to ask this question is, do Liverpool need to buy Morgan Rogers? Not do you want him? Because look, as football fans, we're all greedy, aren't we? We all want as many good players as possible, but do we really need him? Like, would that be the best way for Liverpool to invest money? For me, the answer is no. I don't think we need Morgan Rogers. I think if you look at how much he'd cost, the Premier League club, new contract signed at Villa, I just think it would be a level of money that wouldn't make sense for a position that I don't think we're in dire need of. So for me, it would be a no. Good player, but for me, I don't think it's sensible spending of money. The Wonder Man, 12 months with us, 1 year anniversary. Happy anniversary, my friend. Said, evening, Craig, how you doing? 1 year now. Woohoo! I'm good, yeah, I'm good. Did I mention I'm good? I'm good. Hope all's well with you, and thank you so much for being with us for the year. Seamus said, I said it last summer, we need a good defensive midfielder. We absolutely do, my friend. We absolutely do. Right now, for me, priorities are centre-back, then central mid, and attacking wide player. They would be the three priorities for me. And that's before we start to, look to building out the squad depth then and, figuring out what happens with Andy Robertson. Do we need to bring in another left back? Does Canade stay? Does he go? Hopefully we get the contract renewals moving as well for Alexis McAllister, Ryan Gravenberch, Dominic Szoboszlai. Does Alonso play two strikers? We need wingers. So Alonso plays a 3-5-2 system. Now, in the 3-5-2 system, I guess the question is, do you play with a striker and a 10? Or do you play with two out-and-out strikers? To the best of my understanding, I think he only played with one striker at Leverkusen. And then he played with somebody off that striker. But yeah, again, not going to sit here and profess to say I've watched every one of his games at Bayer Leverkusen. For us, look, I'd be a bit wary of going to a system that require two strikers to play every week, because then you don't really have the cover unless you're looking at a Jaden Dans or something. So, if we tweak the system we play in and we go with one wide player, then you can maybe push, if you need to, shoehorn one of your players into a wide position, like Hugo Ekitike. I don't like the idea of having to play two strikers. It doesn't feel right. He played Boniface up front and Wirtz in behind. That was my thinking, but I wasn't 100% sure. But thank you. Appreciate that. It's not a witch hunt. Don't know what you're talking about. Maybe there was another comment in, something about that. I don't know. Yeah, sorry. I don't know what that's about. I'm assuming it's probably something to do with the racist situation. Paul Beer said defensive midfielder is a must. Definitely. That is, we need pace up top, so we need another wide player, and we need a defensive midfielder, a top quality defensive midfielder. For me, I could be setting myself up for a bit of pain here, but I'm fully on board the Wharton train. I really am. Chad, pleasure as always, sir. Pleasure as always. Hope all is well, Craig. I'm loving the Bodo Glimt team. 3-1 over Inter right now. You're the best, my man. Thank you. It really does show. Like, I was looking earlier on, Chad. Serie A just is not it. It really isn't at the minute. Like, Juventus are 5th, and they were ripped apart by Galatasaray. We played Inter Milan, and I said it at the time, they're no great shakes whatsoever. They're a pale imitation of what they were at their pump, or their peak. And Italian football is just really, if you were to rank, right, here's one for you. Rank the top 5 leagues for me right now in order of best to worst. So Premier League, let's say, at the top. So what are the other ones that you go for in the top 5 leagues in Europe? The Bundesliga, Serie A, the French First Division, the Premier League, and what's the other one I'm missing? Bundesliga, Serie A, Premier League, La Liga, and the French First Division. Oh, Bruges pulled back to make it 2-2. Interesting. Obviously, we should have an eye on that game, because one of our opponents are either going to be coming from that game or the Juventus against Galatasaray one. So do them in the top 5 for me there if you can. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Give me your top 5. So for me, I'd go Premier League, La Liga, Bundesliga, the French division, then Italy. That's what I would do at the minute with the top 5 leagues. So Prem, La Liga, Bundesliga, Ligue 1, and then Serie A. That's the way I'd do it if I was ranking them. Keane said England, Spain, Italy, Germany, France. See, I'd swap them around a bit, my man. But first 2, I'm on there with you. Prem is honestly of a really poor standard this season. Not sure what it says about the rest of Europe. I think I've been battling this idea in my own head. Is it that it's a really poor standard, or is it that it's just a different type of Premier League this year? And I don't know the answer. It's an open question. Yeah, because obviously as Liverpool fans, we've seen a very inconsistent Liverpool this year. So, our view on the Premier League this year is that it's been a bit of a mixed bag. So, overall, though, you see the strength of the Premier League teams in the European competitions. 5 of the 6 Premier League teams made up the top 8 of the Champions League, and then Newcastle, of course, who were the ones that didn't. They won 6-1 away against Bodo Glimt in the playoff. Oh, not Bodo Glimt, excuse me. Karabag. Apologies, my apologies. Mark said England, Spain, Germany, France, Italy. England, Spain, Germany, Italy, France for David Cornwell. Yeah, so a year ago, David, maybe even more, I probably would have had France as the bottom. But I've got to put my hands up and say I underestimated some of the talent in French football, and I think French football is in a good place at the minute. Obviously they haven't got an incredible amount of money behind the league. TV revenues and stuff like that aren't where they'd want them to be, but I do think it's produced a lot of talent over the last few years, French football. Christina said Premier League, Bundesliga, La Liga, France, and then Italy. It's JB said Serie A, my opinion, is better than League and Bundesliga because probably the one of all the five that has a title race till the end of the season. I mean, I suppose yes. I should have probably phrased the question a bit differently. Um, not standard wise is probably what I should have said. I do get your point though on enjoyment. But just standards wise, I would personally think Serie A's dropped right down. Like I've said this to you guys so many times. Like when I was growing up, Italian football was where it was at. That's where the money was at. I mean, James Richardson and the Saturday morning Serie A show on Channel 4 used to be appointment viewing, like absolutely unmissable stuff. But now, Italian football it's just not great. It really isn't. And you're actually starting to see, for maybe one of the first times in modern history, some of the top talent leaving Serie A. The likes of Sandro Tonali. I couldn't imagine the likes of Tonali leaving Serie A to come to the Premier League 10 years ago. And I know there have been Italian players who've come across, but right at the start of a big point of the career like that, I think it's again just showing the strength of the Premier League. Max, how are we, dude? Max said, how are you and your family going? I'm going to watch your podcast after this stream. I forgot about it. I have a feeling we won't beat Forest on Sunday. Family are good, thank you for asking, mate. Can't complain there. And with regards to the Forest game, I'm a bit nervy about it. I don't know really what to expect from it. It's been a decent few games for us. I've enjoyed the wins over Brighton. Certainly a good, credible win against Sunderland, 4-1 against Newcastle, 6-0 against Karabag. But I don't know, yeah, this has potential banana skin written all over it, so I'm definitely a little bit nervy about it. Marcus said, evening, Craig. Who do you think is our most realistic replacement for Mo? You're the GOAT. Cheers from Toronto. Thank you, man. There's been so many kind comments lately, and it's really putting a guilt trip. No, that's not fair to say guilt trip. It's really making me feel reflective. Because in all honesty, over the past couple of months, I felt like this will be my last season. I've kind of started to come to peace with the fact that I think this could be my last year doing this. But I don't know, maybe there's a bit more to go. I feel like I don't know. I wonder if the channel's plateaued. And that's always my fear. I want to walk out at the top. And I'm at that point where I'm uncertain where a channel's future direction is. So I'm still trying to work and figure through that. But thank you so much, mate, for your kind words. And our most realistic replacement for Mo? It's a good question. Because, we could work our way through the list, but how many of the names we talk about are realistic? Are either of the guys from Paris Saint-Germain really realistic? Doué or Barcola? Is Nico Williams realistic from the point of view of would we pay the wages or improve the wages currently on Athletic Club? Probably Yan Diamonde, if I was to say the most realistic. Although, again, does he play off the left more? Elise is the guy. He is the one. Like, there is no better than him. He is the right one. If we could cherry pick it and drop it into the team, he'd be the one. But, yeah, most realistic, I really don't know. It's a really good question. It's, in another way, I think it's Liverpool Football Club. We've seen that we have the financial ability to go out there and and compete for any of the names that we really want. Yeah, that's probably my best guess at an answer. William said, please don't leave, Craig. Your platform means so much to so many. I totally appreciate that. Like I've said, I just I've since we've started the channel, we've been in this really fortunate position where every year I can look back and see progression. Every year I look at the channel and see we're still making strides, we're still moving forward, and as a human being, that's kind of the way I'm wired. You know, even if it's small, tiny little growth all the way, that's, you know, once I start to see stagnation in my head, I start to think, right, time to exit stage left and let somebody else have a pop. But like I said, I don't know. My head's kind of all over the place, and I try to not make big life decisions when I'm not in the right headspace. So I have a holiday coming up next month that I really need, and I'm going to have a good lot of time to have some thinking and figure out what exactly I do want to do, because I haven't achieved what I wanted to achieve yet, but I'm already extreme. Like, if it stopped tomorrow, you know, I look back at it and think, well, we grew the biggest, most watched Liverpool fan channel in the world, and nobody can ever take that away from me, no matter what happens. So, yeah, I don't know. Like I said, I don't know. Is the channel still growing, or has the numbers dropped off slightly? Because my view, it looks like it's constantly growing. So subscriber counts on YouTube have slowed down a lot across the board, and it's because YouTube's getting so good at recommending. Their algorithms are getting so much better at recommending the type of content you want, that a lot less people are likely to subscribe these days, because they get, you know, when you go live, they go into your recommendations straight away. So I kind of got freaked out a bit recently that our subscriber growth has somewhat plateaued, but our views are still growing. You know, it's quiet time now, but it's a quiet time right across the board for Liverpool content now, not just for us. But yeah, I only had this conversation with Connor the other day about the subscriber count, and you know, that's kind of, after doing the research on it, that's what we've come up with. That, you know, growth in that way isn't, you know, people aren't hitting the subscribe button as much because they don't need to hit it as much. And, you know, when he explained that to me, it made a lot of sense. But I still want to get 1 million subscribers. Like, that's still my dream. And I refuse to cheat like some others have. And again, I'm not saying who those others are, and I'm not trying to say I'm not saying the United stand or AFTV, by the way. They've earned every one of their subscribers. But there have been channels that have cheated and bought subscribers, and I don't want to go down that route. I want ours to be organic and genuine. Yeah. So anyway, I don't know how we got into this conversation, but here we are. Premier League, Germany, Spain, Italy, then France. Both Spain and Italy are too ego-driven by the players and owners, said PhD Word. Please, no airport accidents. Oh, I know. That's what makes me feel so bad, is that whole holiday was wasted. And I was just, and these holidays are so important to me mentally. And because I was in agony the whole time I was over there the last time, I didn't get a holiday, and I had to come back early and get physio and stuff. So yeah, I need this holiday badly. So I'm trying to just hang on in there till I get away next month and reset and get a proper mental break and a bit of decent weather. Because right now I'm genuinely on the floor. As a human being, I mean, I'm struggling. I'm not in a good place, and I'm just trying to get through each day. Skater Hardy said, I've heard other channels saying similar regarding the algorithm, and those weren't even football related. Yeah, no, it's genuine. Like, the algorithms are getting so good at recommending the content to people that there probably isn't a need to subscribe. But, you know, you only get the shiny plaques for subscribers. So I want to try to chase down a genuine 1 million subscribers, and I've only got so many potential years left in me to do it. So and again, Connor's coming along leaps and bounds as well, and the few bits and pieces he's doing. But ultimately, I look at this channel as the audience is my audience. Yeah, I don't know. I don't even know how we get into this conversation, by the way. Sorry. A. Michael said, I'm not going to get into any BS banter, but mark my words, Portugal will win this World Cup. We'll chat about it in July. They were mentioned yesterday. We had a conversation yesterday, and Portugal were mentioned as one of the leading potential candidates, and I don't think too many disagreed, to be honest, mate. I mean, if you look at that Portugal team, it's got strength and depth right throughout it, so I don't think it's off the wall whatsoever to suggest a possible Portuguese World Cup win. I don't think it'll happen, but I don't think they'll be too far away from it. Christina said, Craig, you can only retire when Liverpool win the treble. I mean, can we talk? Well, finish your comment. You can only go out on a high with your new office having good use. So, I love when people say retire. I can't afford to retire. Like, if I stopped doing this tomorrow, I'd have to get a job somewhere else. Like, I'm not in a financial position to retire or anything close to it. So, when I say retire or step away, I mean from content. I don't mean from the workforce, because yeah, I am absolutely not in a financial position to retire. It's been rotten weather since November. Vitamin D needed. Oh, mate, definitely. It's really grinding. Every day looks the same. You wake up, look out the window, weather's miserable, cold, dark. Yeah, defo. Trucking Song said, as an early starter in work, I look forward very much. Connor's morning vids. I love how he's turned a bit of a sketch writer at the start. Yeah, again, I'm very proud of him. Very, very proud for how he's coming along. He kind of right though when he says live content's a different animal altogether, and you know, I think he's intelligent enough to understand his own limitations with regards to what he can do, and in this side of it, I mean, and live content is a kind of a different animal altogether. You'll never leave. You keep on going on this road every season. Said the same thing 5 years ago as well. Just accept us as we accept you. Yeah, I mean, but surely if you can see me flirting with the idea of it over the 5 years, like you've said, you can understand the impact it has on your life, like, because it's an all-encompassing thing doing this. Like, it's a privilege, but it's an all-encompassing thing that takes a lot. And what, particularly over the last year, mate, the abuse side of it towards my family got out of hand. Like, when the police and stuff were involved, and you're getting bomb threats and stuff like that. Like, that's different level stuff that I never expected to happen to me. So I wouldn't say I'll never leave, in all honesty. You know, you've made a valid point. I mean, I've nearly walked away a few times. That's absolutely true. But there will come a point where I just have to measure my mental well-being versus the potential upsides. How many subscribers are you getting from this rant? Do you understand what a rant is? I don't think you do. You know, a rant is when somebody shouts and gets angry, right? Have you seen my voice being raised once? It's not a rant. Somebody asked me about it and I was talking about it. It's no rant. Again, and the answer to your question is none. It's 301 as it has been since I started, but don't let that get in the way of your little conspiracy theory, my friend. I'd hate to be so negative like that, though. Must be weird getting up out of bed every day to just be a moany little bitch. Where did I want to go next? Yes, let's talk about the two little bits from Ben Spochak for Anfield Watch, which I think are interesting. So he said, if Liverpool qualify for the Champions League next season, one of the players on the shortlist to bolster the midfield is Real Madrid's Eduardo Camavinga. But he went on to name some other players, and this is where I'm going to ask for some of your help. So he said, alongside Real Madrid's Eduardo Camavinga, Liverpool have Crystal Palace's Adam Wharton, Nottingham Forest Elliot Anderson, AZ Alkmaar's Keith Schmidt, PSG's Warren Zaire-Emery, and Lille's Ayoub Bouadi on their midfield shortlist for the summer. Now, I haven't got a clue who the player from Lille is, and I know next to nothing about Keith Schmidt as well. So, of those 5 players, let's say, on top of Camavinga, what do you guys think is likely for the Reds? Who do you think is likely to be brought in? So, again, to run through those names for you, it's Adam Wharton, Elliot Anderson from Forest, AZ Alkmaar's Keith Schmidt, Paris Saint-Germain's Warren Zaire-Emery, and Lille's Ayoub Bouadi. Yeah, don't know who some of these people are. I saw him say Zaire-Emery in FIFA, and he was sick. We've been linked with Zaire-Emery actually a little bit back. I think before he'd really started, like he'd broken through at Paris Saint-Germain, but he hadn't properly established himself, and we were linked with him. Someone said Kefren Thuram. He's been dog shit at Juventus. That definitely feels like, not we got away with one, but I'm kind of glad, we allowed him to go elsewhere, because I don't think he was going to be the guy. But yeah, on that list, as I said, I don't know anything about Bouadi, don't know anything about Keith Schmidt. For me, I would happily have Wharton. He'd be my number one. I think I'd go with the 2 English guys first, Wharton and Anderson, then maybe Camavinga. After that, I don't really know. Keane said, I feel like Wharton is nailed on, but wouldn't be my preferred option. I think if I remember correctly, Keano, I think you prefer Anderson, if my memory's right from our conversation yesterday, mate. Julian said, Keith Schmidt was part of the AZ under-21 team that completely destroyed the Youth League a few years ago. Youth League, the under-21 Champions League. Appreciate the insight, mate. Thank you. Yeah, hand on heart, I don't know anything about, Keith Schmidt and Bouadi. Know a little bit about Zaire-Emery, and certainly know about Forrest's, Anderson and Wharton. And again, I just look at Wharton and just feel like he looks like he's a Liverpool player, or he's, the potential to become a Liverpool player. Conway said, Camavinga's a big name, but there's a reason they're shipping him off. Fair play. Yeah, good shout. He's a great player. And they picked him up for a reasonable price, if I'm not mistaken. Did he play for Stade Rennes or Lille? Or I know he was in France. I just can't remember who Real Madrid got him from. I think it was Stade Rennais, if my memory's right. And I think they got him with 1 year to go on his contract. So he was a reasonable fee. So there's no reason for them to be looking to move him on, unless there's, as you said, an underlying reason. We don't know whether that's the injuries that he started to pick up or anything like that. But whenever I've seen him on the pitch, Camavinga looked like a very tidy footballer. Giles Whittington said, I would prefer Anderson to Wharton. Yeah, coin flip for me. I'd probably be on the side of Wharton, but I do like a lot of Elliot Anderson's attributes as well. I was very impressed by Elliot Anderson when we played Nottingham Forest. I really did keep an eye on him in that game, and he looked a very well-rounded player. Julian said, no worries, Craig. I'm Dutch anyway, so I could have only shared what I know. Keep on going, dude. Thank you, man. Appreciate the insight. Really do. Obviously, if we're talking about AZ Alkmaar, there's only one boy to talk about, isn't there? Mr. Parrott. Angelo Stiller is a decent player. Yeah, it's a good show, Nikhil. I just haven't seen his name being mentioned recently, really. I think Stiller came into this season with a knee injury, if my memory's right. But yeah, certainly haven't really kept track. But good side with a good coach there as well. Alex Brooks said, I love Keith. He's a bag of energy. Wharton is more defensive and Anderson's more attacking. Well, they're both deeper lying midfielders. I think I would see Wharton as having more of an eye for a pass from the few bits I've seen, and Anderson being a bit more direct and a bit more physical. I just think for the way we play, I could just see Wharton as the kind of guy making a tick at the base of our midfield. But either one of those two, and you wouldn't hear any complaints from me in all honesty. If I woke up tomorrow and seen that we'd signed or we'd agreed a deal for Wharton or we'd agreed a deal for Anderson, I wouldn't be complaining either way. Elliot Anderson can play as a 6 or an 8, very versatile. Well, to be fair, most 6s can usually step up to the 8. Be very few that couldn't. And like you've said, his versatility is what stood out to me when we played Forest. I mean, I remember him doing bits in both penalty area, back defending in his own, really good as well. Defensive awareness back there. If I remember correctly in that game, he put in quite a few blocks and a few headed clearances as well. Craig, are we linked at all to Mark Bernal? Not that I'm aware of. But again, don't take that as a definitive answer one way or the other. I want the Fabinho or Hamann in their pump. Oh, yes, please. Yes, please. Dropping in a Diddy Hamann into that side now in his prime. Yeah, I'd sign me up for that. 100%. I've seen somebody said as well, Keith Schmidt is a bit of a Mascherano with a bit more skill. I loved Javier Mascherano at Liverpool. I really, really did. So that's I take that as high praise indeed that you've compared him there to Javier Mascherano. I'm pretty sure Anderson's holding out for City. Look, he's certainly been strongly linked there, JC. That's more than fair, mate. But, if you're him, you'd only go to City if you know Rodri's off, right? You're not going to go in there and play second fiddle to Rodri. So, and they've also brought in the guy from, was it Benfica that they signed as well? So, you'd want to know that they're going to move Rodri on if you go in there. Otherwise, there's no way. I wouldn't be looking at it. But I do get the feeling that maybe we see Rodri going to Real Madrid, and that could be why maybe they're looking at Camavinga moving on or something. I just get the feeling Rodri could end up there. Maybe I'm wrong on it, but Urenki, Urenki, a powerful DM and would only cost around 25 million, said JD. So in this conversation, I hope we're at the point now as a club where we don't have to look at the cost as too much of a factor. And what I mean by that is, I want us buying specialists and the best for each position. So if we've got a number 6, I want it to be the best number 6 that's available, that's possible to go out there and get in the market, and not have to really look at the financial constraints of it. Especially after we've went and dropped 200 million quid on strikers. So I'd like us to go out and get the best number 6 we can. Shay Trainer said, I just edge it to Anderson over Wharton for the physicality and aggression. Yeah, but I don't know, just something about Wharton that just makes me feel, Shay, like there's more of a chance of him in a Liverpool shirt. He just strikes me as, and that like scientifically means nothing, but you know what I mean? I just get the vibe he's more likely. That meme guy said, I watch both Wharton and Anderson for the England squad, and easily Anderson makes a big difference over Wharton, but no complaints if we get Wharton. Thomas Berkovic said, I think Guardiola's leaving because he knows the ship's about to collapse. Well, there's certainly plenty of chatter that he may depart now. I don't know definitively one way or the other. You've seen all the links to Enzo Maresca. Alonso's name's been mentioned there a little bit as well. I think Guardiola's 1 year to go on his deal. But he always said, and again, I don't think I'm misquoting him here, he said that if they got relegated, he'd stay with them. I'm sure he said something along those lines. The Real Raging Cajun said, in my opinion, Liverpool's attack and midfield is solid. It's our defence that we need to improve to get back to the top. Well, Let's look at the defence then. I think fullback positions on the right side, we've got two very good options, although we need to have a serious look at the injury situation there at right back. Is Conor Bradley going to be a recurring injury, throughout his time at Liverpool? Because if the answer to that is yes, Liverpool have a big decision to make then on his long-term future. Because as a player, top notch. Frimpong, again, I feel like maybe he's just been unlucky this season with those injuries, because from my memory at least, he doesn't have a huge injury record, from his time at Leverkusen. On the other side, well, we need to figure out what's going on with Andy Robertson. We've got Milos Kerkez. Andy Robertson's contract's up at the end of the year. So if he goes, what I don't want to see happen is Costas coming back in. I don't want to see that happening. I don't think that's improving us one bit. Plus Costas only has 1 year to go on his deal as well. So I'd rather Liverpool move him on this summer. And if Robbo isn't staying, then go out and get somebody else to come in. Probably somebody... That's a tough one though, because they know they're coming in to be backup to Milos Kerkez. So it's a difficult balancing act to get somebody to come in that's of the level. And maybe I was leaning to saying somebody at the 27, 28 age bracket, like an Anthony Robinson. But are they going to want to come in and maybe not be guaranteed to play? Maybe in Anthony Robinson's case, you could make the argument that, well, look, mate, you might be playing Champions League footy, and you're still going to get 30, 35 games a year minimum. Then we talk about the centre of the defence. That's where the big questions are right now, both in the short and medium term, because we don't know what Canade's doing. So like I said, hypothetically, we could be in a situation next summer at the end of 2026-27 season where Canade went the year before and Virgil's gone. Xhaka would be in a year at that point. We know a little bit more about Giovanni Leone. But yeah, the key for me to the defensive situation will be what happens with Canade. If Canade stays, I think we've got a bit more breathing room. We can allow Xhaka time to come through and Leone, and then see how Virgil gets on next year. But if Canade goes, then the club needs to bring in a leader. The club needs to bring in an established centre-back at that point. Keane said, would you like a Robinson, Juff, Nico Williams if Robbo leaves? I would love Anthony Robinson. I think Anthony Robinson would be a very good fit. Yeah, I think that would be an astute piece of business. But would you be able to get him in? Oh, hang on, is this true? Is it really Desmond in the Wolves game? Oh, lads, is this true? Like, is it going to stand there? I'm not having my balls tickled here only to be told, nyet. And we must be right at the death here of time, right? Oh my God. So it looks like Arteta choke is actually going to happen. Wow. Don't let this slip, Wolves. Come on. Trucking Song said £2 for a lost 2-goal lead. Mate, if you had to pay that up for Liverpool this year, you'd be broke ass motherfucker. But thank you, bro. Appreciate you. Look, put it this way. If Arsenal are even nervy here, away at Molineux, against a team that is absolutely destined for relegation. Oh my days. Do let me know if that one sees out and finishes 2-2 though, because I don't know. I don't want to celebrate anything I fuck all to be celebrating, to be fair. I don't want to smirk about anything while there's still time left. Because if they drop points there, lads, I'd say the City lads now would have a massive horn at this moment in time. Let's be honest, they'd be sitting there now, right now, if you're a City player. Oh. Not saying that until I see it's full time. Tell me when it's full time. And then we can talk. Genuinely, this would be like, this would be a Brucey little bonus, because I didn't even know they were playing today. So one lad said there's 4 minutes left. Someone else says there's 1 minute left. Help. They'll be nursing a semi. Oh, I wouldn't say semis, mate. No, I'd say we're talking about full construction. Full construction at this point. So I've got, it's over, I've got 2 minutes, I've got 1 minute. We're into the ref's discretion. I better get the image ready. Just preparing the groundwork here, ladies and gentlemen. Bear with me. I'm watching. So if anyone's watching this back tomorrow or later on, they'll be like, "Oh, this is an awful boring part of the stream, isn't it?" Come on, boys. Come on. Is it finished? Ollie says it's finished. Have we got the full-time whistle? It's over, is it? Yep. Oh. Just going to leave that there for a moment, ladies and gentlemen. just going to leave that there. Just leave it sit for a minute. Whoop whoop. Also, just in case, hang on. We're not finished yet. The banter's not finished. We also have, don't forget to take your daily dose. Oh, lads, what a night. What a night. That's mental. That's mental. Oh, lads, I'm heartbroken. Poor Arsenal. Poor Arsenal. Oh, shucks. Oh my days. How have they managed that? You don't need to see me for a minute, do you? You don't need to see me. We'll just leave these up on screen for a minute. So look, you're sick of seeing me. We'll just leave these up there to enjoy for a minute, ladies and gentlemen. Take one a day. One a day. Whoopsie. That's a shame, isn't it? That's a shame. Do you know what? I'm going to be honest with you, right? I didn't think a potential Arsenal collapse would make me as happy as I'm kind of feeling. I wasn't expecting it. You know? But, you know, if I sat here and said it hasn't made my night, I'd be a lying piece of shit. It's certainly brought a smirk to my face because, I mean, let's be honest. If you're picking a midweek game to play for a game that gives you a game in hand, then, you know, to play a game more, you'd want Wolves, wouldn't you? Like, that'd be the one you'd want. So, whoopsies. No, I don't wind me mates up like that. Let Lee calm down. I wouldn't be that type of a shithouse to me mate to go in and wind him up like that. You know, I respect Lee too much. But the other Arsenal fans, well, you know, yeah, that's what you get for firing Gunnosaurus, motherfuckers. Trying to explain to my girlfriend why it's funny. Please help. It's funny because, well, let me try and explain it to your darling girlfriend. Let me have a crack at this one. So, in North London, there are two clubs, Spurs and Arsenal. Spurs historically have been bantered and laughed at as the bottling club, the club that wins nothing, the club that are actually reigning Europa League champions. And at this particular moment in time, Arsenal Football Club has spent in excess of £1 billion to try to build, let's just call it a Lego house. And they've won nothing. And this season, this is supposed to be the year. They get out in a great start, they're defensively solid, they play dull, boring football, but it's effective. And they've got themselves into a position where it looked like they were going to get themselves a league title. But, my dear, there's always a little bit of pressure. And the pressure, well, that's unbearable when you get to this point. I know this as a Liverpool fan because I've seen years of the pressure on us and the release when you get over the line. So for Arsenal, the club whose fans in general, except for my good friend Lee Gunner, refuse to give credit to Liverpool for a league title win. The key being a league title win. Now Arsenal may very well go on to win the league title this season, ladies and gentlemen, but they may not. They're not making easy work of it. And we know one thing about Manchester City is, unlike me in the bedroom, they finish strongly. And they are going to smell blood in the water here. And Pep Guardiola is going to be sitting there in Manchester with a raging hard on, absolutely knocking cups off the table. It'll be that big. That's how excited he'll be. Haaland will be out there eating raw steak as we speak. And I imagine Rodri's running through the snow topless somewhere screaming victory. Underarm Forehair said, I'm not cutting my hair till Arsenal win a Premier League. I mean, oh, lads, what do we think? Do we think they bottle it from this point? So we have a poll running where we're asking, do Liverpool need to buy Morgan Rogers? 67% of people said, no, we don't need to buy Morgan Rogers. Do they do? Like, let's just check. Let's run a poll. Probably could be the first non-Liverpool poll I've run, actually. So, ladies and gentlemen, tonight's question that I'm asking is, will Arsenal Football Club bottle the league this year? Do let me know. So, Babatunde put in 6-7. I've taken over 6-7 in my house, Babatunde. 6-7 in my house means something very fucking different. I can tell you, you mightn't believe me, I could call the good lady wife, but 6-7 in my house means that I want 6 sausage rolls and 7 chicken tenders. That's what 6-7 means in this house. So when my wife says, what do you want for dinner? If I say 6-7, she knows I want 6 mini sausage rolls and 5 or 7 chicken tenders. So that's what 6-7 is in my house. And I'm not even joking, genuinely. That's what it means in my house. So, what question is that, Craig? Of course they will. You know, it's just a little bit of fun, of a Wednesday evening. Noah said we got no excuse to bottle the league. We didn't bottle the league though, Noah. We won the league. If Arsenal don't win it this year, and I've said this before, look, if they don't win the league or a Champions League this year, they've got to fire Arteta. They just have to. Arsenal fans may disagree, and that's their prerogative to do it. But if he doesn't do it now, after the amount of money as well that he's been given, to build a team, because net spend wise, we speak about our summer window and how much we spent. Net spend wise, we spent less than Arsenal last summer. So, if you don't go win the league title this year, well, we're going to be back next year better than we were this year. So we're going to be in the mix. Chelsea are probably going to be in the mix. Who knows where Manchester United are going to be at? And Manchester City, if they're not relegated, will still be there as well. So really does feel like it's time to shit or get off the pot for Arteta. Dopamine rush better than Liverpool winning. Opening a beer tonight, Craig, says for printing. Yeah, I have to admit, mate, I didn't think I would be as gleeful as I feel right now at that result. I didn't. I did not expect to be sitting here when you guys told me that Arsenal had gone 2-0 up to be talking about a 2-2 draw come the end of it. Because that's a game that they would have put down as a 3-point banker. So to only get a point away, that's let's have a live look at the old league table here. Hang on. Oh, what a night. Oh, what a night. So Arsenal are currently 5 points clear of Manchester City, who have a game in hand. So if Manchester City win the game in hand and they play Newcastle this weekend, that would put them up to 56, and they have to play. So technically, the league title is in Manchester City's own hands because they have to play Arsenal. So if they beat Arsenal at the Etihad, the league title's in their own hands. And that is not a position Arsenal fans will have wanted their team to get to, where it's no longer entirely in their own destiny. Now, if they go to the Etihad and get a draw or a win, they still be ahead. But right now, as it sits, if Man City win the game in hand, the title is technically in their own hands. Peter said, saw the game, absolute scenes after the match. Jesus probably gets a red card. The mentality monsters from London collapse yet again. Do you know what though? Arteta is one of the most unlikable fuckers. So, I genuinely have some sympathy for some good Arsenal fans I know if they don't do it. But for Arteta, none. Zero. Don't like him one bit. You can take the Evertonian out of him to some extent, but there's always a little bit that comes through to the fore, and let's wait and see. But can you imagine the pressure? Every home game now, the pressure inside the Emirates, the pressure. Every kick of the ball, the pressure. 0-0 after 50 minutes, the pressure. 1-0 up with a few minutes to go, the pressure. You can sense it, you can feel it, it's tangible. Almost dripping out of the air, the pressure. Can they handle that? I don't know. We can, proven it time and time again. We know Manchester City can. Can Arsenal handle it? The pressure? I don't know. But it's mounting, the pressure. Meant to hit yes, so at a margin of error, Bottlejob FC added again, said Chancellor Mohada. Well, I will allow for the margin of error, my friend. Thank you. Just popped onto Lee's channel and he's fuming. I don't blame him, James. I don't blame him. I respect Lee too much to wind him up now. I wouldn't do that to a good friend like that. I let him calm down before I have a chat with him, because of course, if I was in his shoes right now, well, I wouldn't be a happy chappy to say the least if I was in his shoes. So I totally empathise with where he's coming from, because to be fair to Lee, he's one of the few Arsenal fans that I've seen over the years that tries to actually hold their club to a standard. You know, and he gets criticised for it, but it's one of the things I love most about him is that he wants greatness. He expects that of his club. And I don't understand how anybody wouldn't want that for their club. So I totally empathise with Lee. Yeah. And more than that, yeah, I just know he's a good dude. Daniel Johnson said, squeaky bum time for Lego head. He supports the From Club then. I don't even know what that means, mate. Sorry. What team would you not want to face in the Champions League? Arsenal or City is probably the answer. I'm never a fan of playing clubs from your own league in the Champions League, but you know, I think Arsenal and Manchester City, they're both coin flips of games anyway. So I'd say they'd be both two difficult ties. So they'd probably be the ones that would worry me the most, in all honesty. Like Paris Saint-Germain, it'd be a difficult game, but you know, I think on our day we can beat anybody. Real Madrid, I don't think they're as good as they look on paper. Bayern, that'll be a difficult one over two legs as well. But yeah, I just would like to avoid the English clubs where possible because, or the two at the top of the table, because that, yeah, there's something extra saucy if you get knocked out to a team from your own league. So yeah, I'd like to avoid the English teams where possible, except Spurs. You can bring on Spurs. That's handy enough. Callum said, would you say if Liverpool win the Champions League, this is a successful season? And would the season be considered better than Arsenal or City this year? Well, look, the second part, it depends what they do. But would winning the Champions League be a successful season? 100% yes. And, you know, I couldn't sit here with a straight face and say otherwise. You know, let me answer it a different way. If we won the Champions League but finished 15th in the Premier League, I'd still consider that a successful season because ultimately your aims of getting back into the Champions League are achieved and you've won it. So, yeah, any season that you win one of the two big ones, that is a successful season. No matter what else happens in and around it, if you win one of the two biggies, that's a successful season for me. And even though I don't think Arne's the guy moving forward, I wouldn't sack a manager who's won the Champions League 1 year and the Premier League the year before. That would just be madness, even though my own feelings would be different. Strategically, I just don't think he could do that. But I guess the question is, do we think we're likely to win the Champions League? Now, I think we've as good a chance as anybody, but for any team, no matter who you support, I find it very difficult to say, yes, we're going to win the Champions League, because it's such a, it's, you know, any club competition is a volatile competition. City's game in hand is home against Palace. You would imagine the form Palace have been in that they'll get the job done there. As I said, just to reiterate now, if City win the game in hand, and they won this weekend as well, they would be within 2 points of Arsenal, knowing that Arsenal have to come to the Etihad. So technically, the title would be in their own hands still, which is a position that Manchester City didn't think that they would have been in. Now, if you think about this, ironically, we've played a big part in this swing, because when Dominic Szoboszlai put that ball in the top corner of Gianluigi Donnarumma's goal, and we were all in astonishment at that strike and 1-0 up, let's be honest, we all thought the title race was also over at that point. We obviously self-sabotaged at the end of the game and lost 2-1, and it reignited the title race. Wow. So, on Sunday, there's a North London derby at Spurs. That's going to be interesting. Then Arsenal have Chelsea after that, and then they go away to the Amex to take on Brighton. So Keane's just sent me the next 3 Arsenal League games. North London derby away against Spurs with a new manager in. Then they've got Chelsea at home, which is going to be a tough game, and then Brighton at the Amex. Manchester City have Newcastle at 8 o'clock on Saturday. Then they've got an away game against Leeds, and then they're home against Forest. So it's going to be a very interesting end to the season. Do you know what? It makes me feel a bit sad as well, though, because I'd like us to have been in, like, let's say, Villa's position here, ready to strike, ready to kind of capitalise on this. And as much as I'm happy to sit here and banter and laugh about Arsenal, there is a bit of sadness in me that we're not there potentially able to capitalise on it. Jacob said, Craig, honest question, who would you rather win the league, City or Arsenal? Arsenal. Look, there's two ways for me to answer this question. There's the part that would say Man City because nobody gives a shit. And that's the truth, right? Nobody gives a shit because nobody believes that what City have done is legitimate. So nobody really gives a shit about anything City does. But also for the very same reason, the sporting integrity side of me thinks that if Arsenal win it, fair play to them. So I guess the answer would be I'd prefer Arsenal to win the league title. But I would also enjoy the collapse an ungodly amount if it happened. Because, like I said, I've looked at City winning league titles in years gone by and I've just shrugged my shoulders and thought, well, I don't really give a shit because I don't believe it's legitimate. And we've been on the tail end of so many close title races with City where some Arsenal fans were just loving the fact that we were second to them and we're almost willing on the cheating bastards. So to see Arsenal now potentially in the position we've been in for years and suffering at the hands of a club who got to the position they're in, maybe, improperly, if the charges are to be believed. There's almost a bit of irony to that. That they're feeling the same things we felt that they mocked us about. But here's the difference. I will still credit them if they win the league. And I've said this all the way through the season, from day one to here. If Arsenal win the league, as much as it will be unbearable, from a sporting perspective, we have to congratulate them and say well done, because you don't win a league by accident. You deserve to win the league. And they haven't broken the rules, and they've seemingly spent what they've generated. So, yeah, Arsenal would be the correct answer, but, like I said, the upside of City winning it is nobody gives a shit and we all get to banter Arsenal. So 6 of one, half a dozen of the other, probably. Keane said, the joy of Arsenal bottling it outweighs the annoyance of City winning it. Do you think Liverpool's team last season was better than any of City's title-winning seasons? No. I don't even think that was our best team last year. I think we've had better years under Jurgen that should have won league titles or have been very unfortunate not to win league titles. So, no, some of City's teams, again, talk about how they were assembled is one thing, but yeah, interesting. Shane said, I know it's if, but, and maybes, but in at least 4 games, we drew loss when we should have won. So it's so frustrating because we could be in the race. Shane, how do you think I feel right now as well, as a Liverpool fan? How many points have we thrown away this season? I think there was a stat, we've dropped more points from the 90th minute onwards than any team in the top 6 race. So I get it, mate. And, I guess for you, as you said, if you got that consistency a bit earlier, you've only got 1 game a week to manage now for the rest of the season. So, yeah, it's there's a lot of ifs, buts, and maybes, all right. And, for me, I think Liverpool should be where Villa are now, in and around that spot, ready to pounce on this. And I kind of mentioned it a few minutes ago. That's part of the sadness of this, is that, there's nothing for Liverpool to really capitalise on here. Oliver Baker said, how many years will this second place be for Arsenal? So, look, Lego Head is going to go into his press conference and he's going to say all the things that he has to say. And he's going to say everything to deflect away from the elephant in the room, pressure. So he's going to talk about everything, doing the right things, being in the right moments. He's going to give it all this. But ultimately, pressure is real. Pressure is mounting. And it's been commented on by commentators who've covered Arsenal games in recent weeks that they're almost better playing away from home. Because, the pressure inside the Emirates. So right now, that pressure... Well, it's fair to say that they haven't decreased the pressure with tonight's result, have they? They're now looking over their shoulders, very, very concerned. Now, look, they've got a League Cup final to look forward to. They're still in the Champions League. They're still in the FA Cup. And they're still top of the Premier League. But, it isn't in their own hands. And it is in their own hands at the same time. Because that game now, if Man City win the games in hand, that game at the Etihad, that's taken on a whole new meaning now. Keane said, handling the pressure is the difference between champions and good teams. Yeah. Now, to be fair about it, the 2 years we won the league title, we didn't really have too much pressure. We kind of won it at a canter and had it boxed off nice and early. And the title races we did have, they were heartbreaking. Absolutely heartbreaking. To have not won the league title with, 97, 98 points one year. To have not won a league title with that just seems all kinds of ridiculous, considering Arsenal have never even got 90 points in the Premier League since Arteta's come in. They keep doing all these measurements about managers who've achieved 89 points in the Premier League, and they try just to shoehorn Arteta's name into it, because they know if they said managers who've achieved 90 points in the Premier League, his name wouldn't be anywhere in that conversation. Yeah. Look, this is fun. I'm not going to lie, this is fun. And I really fucking hate that man, Arteta. I really don't like him one bit. Everything about him just winds me up. Craig, Arsenal fans believe they would win the league before May and then lose games on purpose to get Spurs relegated. That's how far Arsenal fans have gone. Wow. That's a mad statement. Here's what I thought you were going to say, right? When I start reading your sentence and I said, Craig, Arsenal fans believe they would win the league before May, and I thought the rest of that sentence was going to be, and then they could concentrate on the Champions League. Which is where most of our minds would go in that position, right? If this was Liverpool and we were ahead, do you think, right, wrap up the league title as early as possible so we can then shift focus to trying to compete for the Champions League? It wouldn't even enter my head to try to relegate Everton or anything like that, which, you've said they've been speaking about trying to relegate Spurs. It wouldn't even enter my head to think about Everton in the reverse scenario. It would just be, well, we can rest it up to go and win or try to win the Champions League then. Keegan said, I'd like to know where Arsenal get their arrogance from. So do you remember when I went on the kickoff and I fell out with that Arsenal fan on there? That's what all that was over. His arrogance. And I couldn't understand that level of arrogance from an Arsenal fan. Like talking about being favourites for this or, likely to win the Champions League. And I just sat there thinking, where's the arrogance coming from? Like, it's not earned. I never got it. You're just like a yapping little chihuahua back there. Like, just do something and then we'll talk about it. But, to be talked about as a big, big, big club, they've never won a European Cup. I don't care what you say. That's a damning statistic for a club the size of Arsenal, who've had the players they've had over the years. Had their invincible season in the Prem. Had Henry, had Bergkamp. Had so many great players. And they've never won a European Cup in their history. We've won fucking 6 of them. And they again think they talk down to us sometimes. It's weird. Didn't they make a petition for the signing of Madueke? They did, yeah. They made a petition to try and get their club to stop that signing. And then they wanted them to pull out of the Gyökeres deal to try to sign Isak as well. Which is mental. And then they tried to say that the only reason Isak went to Liverpool is because Arsenal didn't have the money for him. Either way, so tough shit. But it's okay though, because they've just given 350 or 400 grand a week to Saka. So, you know, he's got his 75 million quid contract now. They're the self-proclaimed reigning best side in Europe though. That's true. That's true. Yeah. Sorry. Right, so we've got a poll running where we're asking, will Arsenal bottle the league? Yeah, I'll leave you guys keep voting on that one. I know UEFA Super and World Cup. Now, Craig, Arsenal haven't even won the Europa League, let alone the Champions League. Big club though. Big club. Forest, Champions League winners. Celtic, Champions League winners. Liverpool, 6 times Champions League winners or European Cup winners. Manchester United, 3 European Cups. Manchester City, 1 European Cup. Tainted European Cup, but 1 European Cup nonetheless. Aston Villa, 1 European Cup. Arsenal, you know. Oh yeah, and Paddy Power paid out as well, didn't they? The Gunners are now 9 points clear at the top, so we're paying out on Arsenal to win the Premier League, said Paddy Power. Nothing could possibly go wrong now, right, Arsenal fans? Again, do you know what? They're going to look at our game against Man City and somehow try to make out like it's our fault if they do collapse here. Is Wharton a realistic replacement for Maka? It depends what you mean by realistic. Is he an achievable target? Yes. Is it likely Maka goes and he comes in? That I can't answer. We talked yesterday, Maka's father said that they're waiting a contract renewal offer from Liverpool. So it certainly seems like their mindset is to look at what Liverpool offer first before deciding. At this moment in time, you'd nearly ask, is the question more, is Curtis Jones likely to go and Wharton to come in? Because Jones has 1 year to go on his deal at the end of this season and was apparently open to the Inter Milan loan. So yeah, I think something's got to give in the middle of the park if you bring in Wharton. And I don't mean something like an Endo. I mean a regular player I think will have to give, because we've a lot of central midfielders, but we just don't have a specialist in the number 6 position that is at the levels required. Craig, would you sing the Champions League banter song if Liverpool knock leg ahead out in the semis? If we knocked them out in the semis, that would be delicious. Yes, it would be delicious. Dale Johnson said Germany back up to second in the race for the extra Champions League slots. Italy implosion this week with all 3 Champions League teams losing further solidifies the Premier League's position of power. So, right now, England top the coefficient table with UEFA, meaning that extra spot will basically be going to an English team in the Champions League. So there'll be 5 spots in the Prem. The coefficient average for the Premier League sides is 21.18, with 9 out of 9 teams still active in Europe. Maximum score available is 35,125. Germany now up to second place in the coefficient table, overtaking Portugal with 16,785 coefficient, or 16.785, coefficient ranking. Then we've got Portugal next up, have 16.6, Spain 4th, 15.9, then Italy 15.5. Big fall there for the Italian side. So, yeah, Premier League looking absolutely nailed on to get that additional Champions League spot now. Well, as well as one other. If I'm not mistaken, there's 2 available. And the Premier League look like they're absolutely getting one of them. Kaizen said Arsenal don't deserve to be champions. They're time wasting against 20th Wolves. That's the way I've described Mikel Arteta is kind of the way I would describe Gareth Southgate. The plan is to not lose. For a league title, I think you have to go and grab it. You know, it's like going in there to fight the heavyweight champion of the world and thinking you can win it on points, you know, in his gaff. You know, if you're going in there to fight for the title, you got to rip the title away from somebody. You know, to use a boxing terminology, you've got to go in there and knock them out to take the title off them. And Arsenal have tried to stumble their way over the line, and they're so negative. I talked about it last year when Martinelli was running into the corner flag when we played them away and they were beating us by a goal. And there was like, I think, 15 minutes to go, 11 minutes to go, something like that. And Martinelli was heading off for the corner flag. That's the, that's the mindset of Arteta. It's just negative football. It's effective in the Premier League this season, but it's a horrible brand of football. Malty said, loving this. Come on, City. I feckin' hate Arsenal fans. Plus, Tottenham have a European trophy. Love it. I hate City, but Arsenal fans are unbearable. Grim Reaper said, as angry as I was for the last year's Champions League knockout against PSG, losing to the winners weakened the anger of it. Better to lose to the winners than to lose to second place that gets ripped apart. Cough, cough, Inter. It was a weird tie that night because I felt no confidence when that went to penalties at Anfield, which is so unusual. Usually I feel really confident for Liverpool in the penalty shootout, particularly at home. But I have to say, that night, maybe it's because I felt at the back of my mind Paris Saint-Germain deserved to go through over the course of the two games. And, you know, if we went through on penalties, you'd have taken it and you'd have been happy with it, but you probably might have been somewhat of an injustice based off what we've seen over the two games. JD said, the plan is not to lose. That's Slot's plan. They have stolen his plan as well as most of our songs. Yeah, you can't neg your way to success. You know, you've got to go and grab it. You've got to go and attack it. Like Spain do in the international tournaments. You know, they just go and show that they're the best. That meme guy said, the new Champions League format of the table absolutely exposes how weak the other leagues are. Because except Newcastle, the rest are in the top 8 from the Premier League clubs. Yeah, 5 Premier League clubs in the top 8. And then Newcastle made their way through to the playoff round as well. So 6 Premier League clubs still in it. Newcastle are in the last 16 after that first leg 6-1 thumping of Karabag. Wally Hack said, hi Craig, do you think Liverpool hold off on transfers till after the World Cup? It's normally a good shopping window. See who's shining worldwide talent-wise. No. Sorry. It's also a dangerous game. And for Liverpool, the strategy would be to try and get things done beforehand. Because what you don't want to happen is to have tracked a player, let's say, for 2 years. Got to the point where, you know, you think you found a hidden gem or something. They then go and have an amazing tournament and loads of reactionary clubs go in and overpay for that talent. So I would hope, whoever we go after, we have that plan in place before the World Cup and we try to execute on a few of those signings. And then, of course, you've got players who wouldn't be at the World Cup as well, whose countries might not make it there. So keep that in mind as well. But I don't expect Liverpool to be signing players based on a performance in the World Cup. I don't think that's the way we operate. Unless we're going back to that El Hadj Diouf situation, but those days are gone, thankfully. I think Arsenal bottle it, but really hope they don't. I just hate City with a passion, said Tyler. J Bob said, Craig, we would face PSG, Newcastle, Barca or Chelsea in the quarter-finals. That's really exciting. It is. The draw is going to take place on the 27th of February. So what score did the Bruges Atletico Madrid game finish tonight, folks? Because the other one that has a bit of a bearing on us, of course, was Galatasaray against Juventus, and that's 5-2 or 4-1. 5-2? 5-2 to Galatasaray. So I don't see Juventus overturning that 3-goal deficit. 3-3. 3-3. I mean, you'd still make Atletico favourites to go through, but it's 3-3's very credible from Club Brugge. Yeah, so it's looking like it'll be one of Atletico Madrid then, or Galatasaray. If you're going off the favourites from the way the first legs went, you think Atletico Madrid at home will get the job done. And I don't think Juventus turn around a 5-2 deficit over in Turin. I'd be amazed to see them do that. So, yeah, it looks like it'll be Galatasaray or Atletico Madrid. And both of those are going to be like pulling teeth. Honestly, they're going to be two very frustrating last 16 games. Glad to see a own goal on the score sheet again against Arsenal for once. Keane said Galatasaray and Atleti are both horrible teams to play. Yep. So, ladies and gentlemen, we asked you about the Arsenal bottling it, and 86% said yes. So, with the most likelihood of these two teams, I want to know which one you would prefer to play. 1 second. So, who would you rather play next, Atleti or Galatasaray? They're the two favourites after the first legs. By no means done and dusted. There's still plenty of footy to be played. But if you had to play one of those two teams in the round of 16, which is increasingly likely, which one would you prefer to play over two legs? Now remember, Liverpool will have the second leg at home. Would you be happy with Diamonde and Mane in replace of Salah? Mane, no. I don't think Mane is ready to come to Liverpool yet. I think he should do another season with Wolves. Even if they go down Championship, I think he should do another season there. And Diamonde, I honestly don't know all that much about yet. I haven't had a chance to really watch enough of him. Certainly somebody that seemed more than credible based off a lot of the reports and how highly he's been rated by a lot of good teams. I just don't know all that much about him personally. So for me, I'm in the unknown camp on that one. Gala, they spanked us. Spanked us? We lost 1-0 to an iffy penalty. Hardly call that spanking us, to be honest, mate. All I remember for that game is time wasting and the referee not being up to the job and the referee just buying everything. Victor Osimhen was going down every 2 minutes, not with head injuries, and the ref was stopping the game. That's what I remember. I certainly don't remember a spanking over there or anything like it. I just remember it being a very frustrating 90 minutes. J Metro said, Craig, let's play Atleti. If we want to be the best, we have to beat the best. We can do it. Atleti aren't the best, to be fair. They're a good side, don't get me wrong. But, they certainly don't. I don't have a fear of playing Atletico, but I think it would be the harder tie over the two. Yeah, if you said to me which one's more difficult, I would say Atleti. Put it this way, I think Atletico Madrid have the possibility to come to Anfield and do something, whereas I wouldn't think Galatasaray would. If you come out of Galatasaray with a draw, I'd be almost certain you're getting through at home. But Atletico Madrid, they do have that potential to have something about them, as we've seen, with the comeback that they did when we played them at home and nearly got something out of it. Grim Reaper said, we always have good games against Atleti. I'd rather face them than Gala. Their fans are great, but feckin' annoying at the same time. Atleti will either have a good game or poor, no in between. I think I'd prefer to play Galatasaray. Yeah, I think I'd prefer to play Galatasaray over the two. I think, respectfully, Atletico will be a bit more of a difficult tie. But going over to Turkey is difficult. Like, the Turkish football fans are brilliant. I have so much respect for Turkish football fans. They're loud. They're right there behind their team. And they always make it a really hostile environment for opposing teams to come and play in. I remember Timo Werner, when playing over in Turkey, having to put in earplugs and then having to get substituted at half time playing for Leipzig because he couldn't take the noise. And I think that was Besiktas, if my memory's right. Wally Hack said, I want Simeone. Oh, yeah. I mean, I remember Simeone's antics and the main stand winding him up when we played Atletico Madrid. That was fun. You know, Simeone lost his head that night. Haley said that ref was a fuckwit in the Gala game. It was so annoying. Like, if there's a head injury, of course, stop the game. But some of the stuff Victor Osimhen was going down with weren't head injuries, and the referee was still buying it and stopping the game. And we weren't able to get any type of rhythm in that game at all. Trey, how are you, Trey? Said, here's a thought. Maka gets sold, Gravenberch becomes an A, and we sign a proper 6. I'm with you, Craig, and I'm intrigued by the 3-5-2. So, exactly what you've said there, Trey, was how I thought it was going to go. You know, if you asked me 6 months ago, I thought that was the most likely scenario. Alexis McAllister probably moves on. But now I wonder, would it be Jones that goes and Maka stays? I'm not sure what way this pans out, but I do struggle to see all of our central midfielders staying and us bringing in a DM as well. I just wonder where the game time is there for everybody. You know, if you look at the centre of the park, we don't have a specialist 6, but we've plenty of number 8s and plenty of central midfielders or number 10s in there. So I'm torn on the Jones thing. Like, I've asked myself a lot over the last week, would I prefer Jones or Maka to go? And I go back and forth. My sensible brain says it would be better if Jones went because Maka's a better footballer. But then another part of me wants that connection, that Scout's heartbeat somewhere in the team, in the squad. And Jones, you know, loves the football club. And so, yeah, I'm torn on that one because don't want Gravenberch to go, don't want Szoboszlai to go. And I think it'll be one of Maka or Jones. That's just a guess, though. You know, we'll have to wait and see what happens. But I'd be amazed if all of them stay and we bring in the DM as well. Can I just say the reason people prefer City to win over Arsenal fans is because City don't have any. True that, Tyler. True that. No matter how many times they try to pretend they sell out every game, you know, we all see the seats. We all see the empty seats. PD Word said, something about Gala always worries me. Not one of our players getting injured. Plus, don't like how they play / cheat. Look, antics are antics, and it's up to the referee to get a handle on that early doors. And I don't think the referee in the game we played against Galatasaray did. And I thought it just made it an awful spectacle and played into the way they wanted the game to be played that night, which is very stop-start and not giving us a chance to get into any type of a rhythm. Will Endo leave? I think so, Damon. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think so. Because if you look at it, you've got Nioni and Bajcetic. Bajcetic coming back in. If he can keep up fitness, you know, I would say yes, most likely. Bring in a senior number 6 then. Jay Wills, thank you, bro. Appreciate you, sir. Thank you very much. Very kind of you. Where was this comment I wanted to read there a second ago? Mac is more likely to move in the future. Could see Jones hanging up the boots with us, so it'd be Jones to stay for me. Oh, well, I guess we'll get the answer to that quite soon. You know, does anybody think that the club will let Curtis Jones do exactly what Canade's done this year, and what Virgil did, and what Trent did, and what Mo did? Does anybody see a situation where we go into next season with Curtis Jones having not signed a new deal but staying in the team? It's I don't like the idea of letting homegrown players leave for free. So if he stays and the club think that they can get a new deal closer to the end of his current deal, fair enough. But if the idea was for him to stay, see out his deal and leave on a free, I think it would be stupid. Because you don't let homegrown players walk out the door on frees. You're not as valuable as they are to squads. Despite City as a club being scum, if the Arsenal fan base that makes everyone hate them and root against them, They do it to themselves as a fan base for the way they act. I mean, I can completely empathise with where you're coming from there, mate. JC said, I think Jones is more useful than Macca to us. Wouldn't let me send my message. Well, throw it into the chat there now, Jay Wills, and I'll keep an eye out for bro, and I'll make sure to read out your message for you. Just throw it into the chat there, dude, and I'll make sure to get it. And thank you again. Not sure about Bajcetic. He played 12 games in 3 years. Yeah, look, that's a fair critique. He does have to prove his fitness. No doubt about that. Love over said, Craig, do you think the club will look into the goalkeeper position in the summer? I don't see Georgie being used enough. We talked about it the other night, and it's an interesting situation because I think everybody expected him to get the game time in the FA Cup, and he hasn't. So when do you play him? Like, is he really going to be happy just to wait for Alisson to maybe pick up a knock? And even if that's the case, does that truly give us an idea of whether he'd be good enough or not? Right now, and it is a guess, of course, because I'm not inside the AXA, unsure on what way Georgie Mamardashvili will go. I thought it was an understandable deal for the club to make. I still feel like we should have tried harder to either keep Kelleher or put a buyback option in his deal. And I'll never understand why we didn't really seemingly deem him good enough. Now, I know people will say he wanted to go and play first team football, but could have stuck a buyback option in there for 2 years' time when we knew Alisson's contract was up, just in case. But yeah, for Georgie, I mean, if he doesn't get minutes, it's hard to make a judgment, isn't it? Sharkovic, so we need to be Forest this week. Oh, mate, 100%. There's no wiggle room left now. You know, any points dropped from this point on, especially with the run of fixtures we have coming up. We've got, Nottingham Forest this Sunday. Then we've got West Ham at home. Then we've got Wolves away. And we've got Spurs at home. You got to be taking minimum 10 points from those. And you don't want to be starting that by dropping the 2 points potentially in the first one and then wanting to win the next 3. Don't want to give any encouragement to Chelsea and Manchester United. The pressure, Jay Wills. The pressure. The pressure, bro. The pressure. It's real. It's legit. And they're feeling it. Marcus, how are you, my man? Marcus said, in your opinion, who's the least classiest club, United or Arsenal? It depends on who I'm talking about. So, from a fan perspective, easy. United are classier. Easy. Way easy. Behind the scenes, the way the clubs are run, wouldn't be fair for me to say, and I don't exactly have a lot of niceties to say about Manchester United's owners, either one of them, Ineos or the Glazers. But look, I have a very good relationship with Manchester United fans on social media a lot of the time. They've been very kind to me over the years and genuinely very supportive of me as a person when I've struggled. And I know some good Arsenal fans as well, don't get me wrong, like they aren't all arseholes, but I've certainly been annoyed more by Arsenal fans than United fans on social media. So, yeah, I would say Arsenal are the less classy of the two. But again, I don't like to pigeonhole all their fans because of the arseholes that make a holy show out of them. Wally Hack said, Mac has won the lot in football, including the World Cup. I say let him go now. We need somebody with something to prove, maybe younger too. It's basically the pyramid of hierarchy logic. I get it. And my sensible brain thought that he was the most likely for pretty much the reasons that you've said. And looking at the other midfielders and their age profile, Gravenberch, Szoboszlai, younger. So, and with less miles on the clock as well. So look, I don't really talk about the likes of AFTV too much on here because I don't know any of the guys personally from AFTV. But I have seen some of the behaviour towards our club over the years, and I have seen them wanting the league uninvited, and I have seen them belittle our fans and our club quite a bit on some of the channels. And I've said it before and I'll say it again, it's nothing new. As a content creator and as a football fan, I found when I started that we're facing an uphill battle for fan content to be taken seriously because of the actions of a few channels. And I would put AFTV up there as one of the channels I would say I don't think have done things positively for the way fan content is perceived. That's the kindest I can be about it. And like I said, I don't know anybody there personally, so I don't have a vendetta against any of them, but I just I feel like whenever fan content is talked about in a disparaging way, the Arsenal fans and some of their content isn't too far away from the reasons why they're disparaging towards fan content. Who do you think will win the Champions League, Europa League, and the Conference League? Champions League, us, Arsenal, or City. In all honesty, I do think it'll be a Premier League team. Europa League, God, I don't know. I haven't really been keeping an eye on it that much. Don't know. God, Europa League. Don't know. Really, I really haven't got a clue in the Europa League. Sorry, I've paid so little attention to it. Are Lyon in the Europa League? If Lyon are in the Europa League, then them maybe. Or are they in the Conference League? Like I said, I don't know. I didn't really pay attention to it. Anybody else think both of those North London clubs are Spursy? Definitely. I'd love to see Crystal Palace win the Europa Conference League. I would, genuinely, for their club, for their fans, and for how I think they were shafted. Lyon topped the Europa. Yeah, well then we'll go with Lyon. But I'd love to see Palace win the Conference League. I really would. I've a lot of time for Crystal Palace as a football club. I know we had a sticky situation with the situation in the summer with Mark Gay, but their fans are class acts. They really are. I've met a few of them over the years on holidays or, just chatting with them, and I would have a lot of time for Crystal Palace fans and that football club. So, I'd like to see them. Itachi said, I want a double attacker, Ekitike and Isak next season with Wirtz in behind. Oh no, it's filth, mate, isn't it? It's just beautiful footballing pornography. Just even talking about it, just, yes, sir. Really hope Porto win the Europa League, said Jacobs. Yeah, look, Portuguese football, it's produced an incredible amount of top quality players over the years. We were talking last night about the money raised. I still have the list here. The most transfer profit since the year 2000, according to Transfermarkt. Both the top two places on that list are occupied by Portuguese teams, and there's another Portuguese team in the top 7. So Benfica have made €871 million in profit since 2000 transfers. Porto €732 million. And even Sporting, €428 million. So they've been an absolute conveyor belt of bringing in good players and selling them for huge money. Craig, what's your favourite colour? Black. Yeah, black. Black and then really vibrant green. You like Del Boy green, like really vibrant green. Ben said, I really hope Hearts win the Scottish Prem. Yeah, it'd be nice to have a different winner, all right, rather than Celtic or Rangers. So it'd be interesting if Hearts did it. Haley said, I'm happy that Arsenal are bottling the league, especially the way Martinelli shithousery towards Conor Bradley. Still fume over that. Yeah, that was rotten. Absolutely rotten, Haley. And I didn't buy any of the excuse making after it either, or any of the false apologies. It was horrendous. Thought it would have been red. I don't mind red. Like red would be up there, but I'm a fucker for bright colors. Like really bright oranges, yellows, greens. I'm either one way or the other with clothing. I'm either really boring and wear black, or I am off the wall with crazy bright yellows and greens. Piers Morgan had a meltdown on Twitter. Well, this is just another day, Damon, isn't it, bro? It's just another day for old Piercy boy having a meltdown. Maybe he can have Ronaldo and they could have a big cry-a-thon. Maybe you could get him back on and they could cry together. Random question, but I always wondered how you and Connor came together. I usually answer jokingly saying grinder, but no, the truth is I had a podcast and I needed artwork for the podcast, and I put out a post on Twitter asking for a graphic designer to help me out. And I used to think that Connor seen that post and replied to it, but in actual fact, he just spammed a load of different content creators, and it coincidentally happened to come in around the time that I'd asked for a graphic designer. So Connor was the second graphic designer to reply. And I couldn't even tell you who the first one was. I don't remember. But the first person let me down and didn't get the work done. So then I moved down the list to number 2. And I'm very fair on these things. Like if somebody was there first, I give them the first crack. But they shit the bed, and then Connor got the stuff done. And then I got to know Connor a bit, and then I found out that Connor lived in the same county as me, because I didn't know Connor beforehand. Like I've only met Connor through both of our fandom of Liverpool. So then I've gotten to know Connor over the past 10 years, and now, like I said, we throw around the phrase he's like one of the family, but honestly, he is like one of our family. I couldn't imagine my life without Connor in it. Yeah, whatever happens, I look at him like a younger brother at this point. He's a remarkable young man, very, very intelligent, very articulate, very well balanced, and a good counteract to me. Because I'm an emotional wreck. I'm an emotional machine, and he's the very other side. So couldn't imagine doing this journey in content with anybody else, and I don't know if I'd have ever trusted anybody else in the same way I trust Connor, because he's never, ever, 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 ever given me a reason not to trust him or believe in him. And I trust that man with my life. I really would trust him and love him to bits. Absolutely love him to bits. Yeah, sorry, I'm getting a bit emotional about it. Genuinely, like it's. I remember so many of the first little things. The first time we travelled abroad to go over to do that together, and it's been quite the journey. I remember going to Florida and promising his dad that I'd make sure to look after him over there and stuff like that. It's been great to share this journey with him, and I couldn't imagine doing it with anyone else. And also, and this is important, I couldn't imagine anybody else putting up with me, because I'm hard work. I'm very up and down, and some days I'm down in the dumps and I'm very defeatist, and I'll be messaging him going, mate, the channel's dead, we're fucked. The views aren't there, what's going on? And he's talked me off the edge a few times. Like I said, couldn't imagine doing this with anybody else, and I wouldn't want to do it with anybody else. If Connor said tomorrow that he wants to finish up, there wouldn't be an Anfield Agenda. I wouldn't carry on with somebody else. It wouldn't be right. We'd just turn off the lights and say goodbye. That's how much it means to me. Like, truly, this is our baby. We did it together. We started it together, and I've always said to him, we started it together, we'll go over it together. That's the way it is. And thank you, Itachi. Appreciate you, my man. Craig, did you see Arsenal? I've seen the result. I haven't yet had the joy of watching them capitulate. But look, ladies and gents, let's say goodnight. But we asked, who would you rather play in the next round? And 67% of you guys said Galatasaray. But look, I'm going to head off for the night, grab myself something to eat. Thank you all for coming in and joining me again. I appreciate your time. I appreciate you giving up some of your evenings, come and have a chat with me. I'll be back tomorrow. We'll have a news video out at about 4:30, 4:45. And of course, I'll be here for the late night agenda tomorrow night as well, as we start to build up to that game against Nottingham Forest on Sunday. Appreciate you. Connor's been away for a few days. I think he'll be back tomorrow, so he should be back to making his videos by Friday morning. And yeah, we'll see you soon. Much love. Bye-bye.